office, but you can imagine office. It serves an entirely limited clientele in which it draws the clientele from outside of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so then you get parking issues and all sorts of other things. So it may seem like a little too prescriptive, and I hate to do that. I think businesses should go as much as they can, do whatever they want to let the market sort it out. But in this case, sometimes an encouragement is better for everybody. And I think this would be one of those cases to limit it even more. And so you're saying that, restaurant, indoor dining, good, retail store, okay, but commercial school, that's out. Personal service is the one I'm thinking, and custom.
So like hairdresser or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, I'm just
Massage
thinking like you don't
therapist,
want to
nails.
draw people from outside the neighborhood. Ideally, you create a business or a zone that is for the neighborhood, because then you've got parking issues, for example, and it doesn't do what the OCP is asking, which is to create vibrant neighborhoods where people can walk.
Councillor Lockenberg, that could actually serve the neighborhood, like, as an example, if it was you
If it
get
was
your
a
haircut or whatever,
haircut,
yeah.
yeah, you're right. Like
So
I'm just
or
thinking
even
there's
bookkeeping, so
yeah, it's true.
take
And
pressure
maybe,
off the downtown core, driving and,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's
So-
it's true.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I
All
just trying to get the thinking through the concept.
No, and I think you've got the beat of it right too. Like when you look at like the Rosemont grocery store, you look at Burrell's and maybe something in Fairview, like a neighborhood hub, as you will, like serves a purpose. My question comes down to, and we've seen a little bit of purchasing property out on the North Shore and going for a rezone, and like I'm in support of that, and the NADP is in support of that. But we've got two new owners. They both bought those properties recently. They come to it and they come to us, and their explanation is, I can't quite make go of it. They've paid a price that maybe is higher than it needed to be because of the potential of what they could do. And they're coming to us and they're saying, hey, can you rezone this and make this stuff available and open up these options for us so we can make a go of it? But I'm like, how often are we providing people the opportunity to pay a huge price for a property and then come to us later saying, oh, this is really a struggle? And I don't know what we're incentivizing when it comes to the value of the property and the lots and the stuff that attract people from elsewhere to the city, and then they come and they're like, oh, I can't quite make a go of it. I need you to like loosen things up here and let me add some more townhouses. And meanwhile, two other owners didn't really have those options available or didn't consider those options. And it's not like they're exploring innovative options that are off our shelf. I wonder what our principle and our philosophy here is about having this zoning and defining it, and then people come and say, oh, I'm having a hard time, and we create a new zone for them and let them do something else if they come and ask us. And are we going to let everybody go around and do that? And where does it end? I guess because it feels like the opportunity for them to do that is why they paid all of that money. And maybe we need to be a bit of a firmer backstop in saying, well, this is what it's for. And then see who fills the niches. And I don't know. I'm like, the question is open to council and anybody else who wants to weigh in. I just don't know what we're incentivizing here. It just seems like we allow this a lot, from my perspective. But maybe
I don't know if it's a question or a comment.
it's a comment. It's just a. Yeah, I'm sorry. Why? What is our moral obligation to lay out the plan ahead of time and let people fit into that plan versus just being a free-for-all for the property real estate inspect?
Well,
So hang on just a second.
Jesse had a question.
Jesse's, on the list too. Yeah.
I just had a comment saying, when I was growing up in Vancouver in the 80s, there were all these little businesses that were in my East End neighborhood. And they were vibrant and they were cool. And every block had a little business and the family lived above. And it was totally common. And then, of course, with the real estate prices, they all just ended. But it was a really kind of wonderful way of having, there was Commercial Drive, which was the main thoroughfare of business. But then you had all these little businesses and families that lived there throughout the neighborhoods. So you never had to walk too far to access some groceries or their little hardware store. It was a really cool. It really kind of made the neighborhood I don't know, functional and homey and useful, so.
I don't think anybody argues with
Yeah,
the benefit of it. I just, and we don't see the books and the business cases and all of that. So that's, we're faced on looking at it from a land use perspective, and there's only so much we can do through land use regulation. But, yeah, I guess that's a question to council. Like, council can decide to not rezone in the hope that, somebody picks it up and is able to reinvest in the property and make a go at it. But based on my understanding on the conversations I had with the property owner, and one of them has owned the property for a few years, and it's been the retail space has been for lease for 2 years, and I think maybe right now there's a tenant grabbing it, but with the understanding that potentially down the road there could be some more flexibility in it. But they had to go through lending that was commercial lending, and that's based on a looking at the previous numbers of the businesses, and that was very difficult to achieve. Again, is that something that as a land use planner you look into? Not necessarily, but those are some of the conversations we're hearing, and that is kind of where they're coming to us to see, hey, city, is there anything you can do to help us? Yeah, so that's kind of where we kind of looked at it. We really want to encourage the commercial space to be viable, but to be very prescriptive to make it one thing that was historically viable is going to be difficult to achieve via zoning. Not impossible, but that is very much a council decision.
okay, so we need to get to the meat of this conversation here. Philosophical ideas are just for interest. There used to be 2 other stores in the Uphill area. Cal, you remember that? One of them not far from Burrell is actually just a street over.
Yeah.
And the other one further up on Cedar, I think it was Cedar Street.
Yeah, not to be philosophical, but really practical. One, I agree with Councillor Page that we are setting up a perverse incentive structure. If people know, and only some people know, that this is a pliable council, so you pay extra and to get what you're going to get, and that outbids the people who don't know that there's that avenue available to them, who otherwise would have made it go within the existing zone. So I think Councillor Page is exactly right in general. However, in this case, I do think that our OCP and Nelson Next and best practices, I think, around new land use planning do say that it should be a neighborhood hub. Like everything suggests that it should, and that some of these uses are not neighborhood hub, like light industrial. It's hard to see how that could become a neighborhood hub. I do think the R3 zone, the C3 zone, sorry, is I do support rezone, because I think not being able to have a cafe restaurant in there is that's a great neighborhood hub. I can imagine some entrepreneur, if they knew that what the limits were, maybe not right away, but they could make a business out of it. And if we open it up too much, it increases the value, and it precludes the ability to make a go for that type of business. Now it becomes like higher end businesses with better returns. So holding it a little tighter, I think, somebody's going to buy it, somebody's going to make a great business, and it's going to be a cafe, restaurant, grocery store combo that the neighborhood would really like. So I would propose we restricted it even a little bit further to keep it to the neighborhood hub focus as for commercial.
So we had a mover and seconder for the staff recommendation, and I'm not sure that will be a friendly amendment to what's being proposed at the moment. Keeping in mind, we got 2 properties we're dealing with here that we're.
I think if custom indoor manufacturing is a sticking point, that can easily be removed. It's not necessarily something that the applicants have asked for. It's something that we reviewed through the bylaw, and we felt that could fit in. It's not industrial by any means. It's just a name. If you look at the definition, it talks about more the artisan component of it.
Right.
But that's easily something that can be removed and wouldn't affect this process at all.
And could I ask, if I may, on that, would that mean the commercial requirement, which is in this, could the personal service, which is typically home occupation, I'm assuming, if somebody says, well, I'm just gonna run my home office downstairs, would that count as the commercial requirement? No, okay, good. Well, if I may, I'm not sure if it's a friendly amendment to the mover, but can we strike the indoor manufacturing? Would that be considered a
But,
friendly amendment?
well, let's go over the wording of what that definition is, because I heard, like, if that's gonna be an artist studio that's doing art classes, is that, yeah, like, can it maybe say artisan instead? I just don't wanna lose that.
Yeah, I hear you. And
But I get I like your terminology for the neighborhood hub. Like, I want to see people coming and going from that retail space. I don't want to see boxes being shipped out from Amazon from there, right?
Right.
And is an artisan format create that, or is that just drawing in
could.
tourism-y kind of?
It could.
I mean,
Also-
in the definition, it says innovation and incubation spaces.
So like a work hub.
Yeah, I
For
think-
custom
Yeah.
indoor manufacturing?
I mean, I understand where we're sort of going here, but we got to give flexibility as well to, you know, that property's been sitting vacant now basically, you know, for a couple of years just about, and it hasn't worked as a store for a long time. And it's actually becoming a bit of an eyesore in the neighborhood, and, you know, being too restrictive with them,
I hate being
You know
too
what I'm saying?
restrictive.
Yeah, you know,
I hate
like
being
it
too
just takes
restrictive. But when you put that sort of structure, a little bit more structure there,
Yeah.
then it's going to focus people to what type of business to make a go of it. And I think this opens up the things that Burrell's couldn't do. One, it's going to be a much better space, so it'll
Yeah.
draw more people. Two,
Sure, yeah.
you can do multiple things, whereas before you could just do some groceries, which, you know, low margins. Whereas coffee shop there meant high margins as well as the grocery store. all
And the
other things.
residents, there's income from.
Okay, so let's get narrowed down here because we got still got work to do. So, Sebastian, how do you see the wording there then? That and
Well,
still allow us to continue here.
Sounds like it fits.
yeah, I think I would, if council wishes to remove the custom indoor manufacturing, the odds of that use actually happening there are probably pretty slim because, you know, I think there's other uses that might be more conducive to those properties. So I think instead of starting to pick words,
Yeah.
I think I would just strike that out
Okay.
and then we can move
But
forward with the.
I don't think it sounds like the definition of it isn't what the name of it. What
I know,
we're
I
talking
know.
about is like what you just said, I think.
I think if I'm understanding, it is those things that we like, but it's also things that we potentially don't like. Would it be possible, if I may, if we did strike it and somebody came forward as an artist to build an artist studio plus other things, could they kind of fit into the retail space if they sold some of their pottery, for example, on the side? Call that a retail space, plus they got a bit of classes
Can
going
we
on.
add something?
The reason we created that zone is that retail doesn't allow for manufacturing on site. It only allows for
So,
selling something that you take from somebody else.
So you couldn't run a pottery class, for example?
Can I ask that is there a definition we can create?
Sure.
Like, I would be more comfortable instead of just striking custom to be like, well, what are we talking about? What's the artisan, industrial, light manufacturing definition that we want to add as an applicable use?
I think there's very limited risk in keeping custom indoor manufacturing. But to create a new definition on the fly, I mean,
I don't need to make it, I'm just,
Go ahead.
Final comment, I still like including it because there's also food. You talked about it creating food, so you could have a restaurant, pub, and they're making their own beer. You know, these are things that we do a lot of in this town that we enjoy, and to have that move up into a community, I think it's still got value. And yeah, it might be low risk, but it does, I think, keep a good potential of local craft type, whether it's food, whether it's art, that it allows for those things to be included. And if it's not accepted or liked by the community, it won't succeed, and then a new business will come as a result.
I hear you. My response to that would be, my worry would be, yeah, a brewery would fit, it would be great, it could be a viable business, but also not a neighborhood hub, right? Like you wouldn't, unless there was some requirement to make it a neighborhood hub where they go for beer, like at Nelson
Tasting room.
Brewing.
tasting room.
A tasting room or something would be great. but there's no.
Sorry, with some of these, with some of the situations we're talking about, is there not, like, let's say I want to put a distillery in there. Well, he'd have to go through the fire department, and the fire hall would say no, because it's very volatile. It's a wooden building. So would some of those safety nets that we have in place,
Catch it.
right?
Maybe, yeah.
Preclude some of that anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. I think it might be okay
I
to
think we're
leave it.
sort of
Yeah.
getting buried in the weeds a little bit here. I don't hear, I get what's being said, but I don't see it as a big threat to the neighborhood to allow I mean, it could be metal work of some kind, it could be T-shirt graphics, it could be a Speed Pro sign kind of thing as well, like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I make a suggestion?
yes.
That you call the question,
Yeah.
and
What it's-
if it is not carried, if it's defeated, Sebastian will at least have some idea of what you're looking for in defining the MU8 zone a little bit differently. Then you could probably have the problem with that, though, is that then everything else is on hold, the other four, right, Sebastian?
Yeah, it'll just
So
kind
just
of,
a moment, just for clarity, Sarah, but we still have to go to the public hearing piece on this, right?
Yeah.
So it's, like, I mean, that's the chance for the public to say exactly what you're
And
talking about tonight. So
And
we're
there-
not,
yeah,
we're
and
not
there-
doing any harm with going forward with that concept. And if we thought the public comes back and says that light manufacturing, or whatever you wanted to call it, doesn't fit, then, that's the time to make that change. So
Well, and you can amend,
Yeah.
so after the public hearing, the bylaw still has a chance to be
Be amended.
amended.
Oh, right, okay.
And then adopted at third reading given third reading as amended
exactly.
to the,
Okay.
So in actual fact, for us to do our job properly is to actually hear from the public.
Right.
And then make the decision. We won't hear everything that, is going to fit with the OCP and that's and next, et cetera. So then we have to filter that in, but at the same time, we should take back what the public's bringing to us.
So we're just moving this forward.
Move this
The
forward, and
public-
when the
the
public hearing
gets to
comes up,
look
let's
at
see
it.
what.
Yeah.
Would that sound fair?
Okay, yeah, okay.
Keith?
Can I suggest, just for the sake of the public, that we just do a first reading? And then it'll be out there, we do a second reading, then there'll be a public hearing. I think sometimes we do move quite quickly through this, and I think these two properties are special to the community. I think just having it out that extra month.
Well, hang on, that's so, that's the other thing. I don't mean to say we should force this by any means. I think it's been well thought out to this point, and there's only one small area of concern. But people have invested their money here in both these properties, and, they don't want to be sitting around waiting for 2 months for us to twiddle our thumbs and, we can get to the public hearing,
asking
get
us
the
for a water
submissions.
line.
Pardon?
They're not asking us for a water line.
Well, keep in mind,
big
we have only
ask.
one meeting in August.
Okay.
So if we postpone this, we're looking at going into September, maybe even October.
yeah, I don't know that the readings will affect the process. So even if you do 2 readings tonight, like the public hearing, and that's where we get into the thick of it, so to speak. And then after that, if council wants to kind of pause because they're hearing from the public and it's going in a different direction, then council can pause at that point in time and defer a third reading for later.
I would just say, my sense after being here for 3 years is the public would like a little bit more time to get aware of this, to have the conversations manifest in the community, for things to pass. I think one more month in the process would help everybody figure out what they want to say about the thing in the first place, especially over summer.
And if I may, related to that, sort of related to that, is can we do the public hearing a little bit more engaged directly with that neighborhood? You remember, like, our challenge with Hall Street was we didn't go knock on some doors, or we knocked on a few doors, but a lot of people got surprised, basically. Can we do anything different this time so that we make sure that everybody in the neighborhood knows?
I think I would dare to say that people are already quite aware,
About the public hearing so that they can make sure
The
to show up.
rezonings, people are well aware.
Yeah, and I mean, we're gonna be doing the mail outs and the newspaper notices, the sign's been on the property for a while, they've held their own, public information session, so I think we're being quite transparent, and I think, I would just follow our typical process.
Yeah.
I think there's some champion in that neighborhood that are really making sure that people are aware.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always tricky when we don't follow our process, because then the next time we do
Yeah,
it, like,
exactly.
what's the trigger to
'Cause
to go
I don't think
further
it's, I
out.
don't think it's smart on our behalf to decide we should have a different process for this project over that project. Like, if we don't have some kind of continuity to our processing, then, people have no certainty around their investment in our community. They don't, they're just, what's gonna come at me next? Like, we have here from this person has written us a letter saying they handed out 100 notices in the neighborhood and 6 people showed up. And I live up there, and that sign's been up there for probably over a month now, the rezoning sign. So, I mean, people are, and the same with the Rosemont store.
Yeah.
So,
And the public information session is above and beyond the
Yeah,
statutory
our process.
requirements, so,
exactly, yeah.
we already take that extra step to, before it even comes to council, that they talk to their neighbors and hear from them.
Okay.
So where are we at here? So we had a mover and a seconder for what was offered in front of us, so are we looking at changing this now to, doing first and second and leaving it at that? And Sebastian, can you assure us that these folks won't be left hanging out to dry for 3 months for us to get through this?
Yeah, so essentially, if council wishes to move forward with the 2 readings tonight and set the public hearing for early September, then in theory, after the public hearing, the third reading could happen. So, yeah, I know there is one property owner that's already kind of picking away at the property just because it's in really bad shape and it needs immediate attention. So they're definitely waiting.
Yeah, yeah. So that would, so that really doesn't change the timeline then, what we're suggesting this evening. Is that what you're saying?
If you, are you going to do the 2 readings
Yeah.
tonight? Yeah, it doesn't change the time.
Okay, fair enough.
That's our recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is that okay with council?
Fine with me.
Can the public hearing be later than early September?
Later than September?
Well, early September, you've got school's gonna start, summer's gonna be over. There's gonna be that whole turn that happens at the start of the year. We see it everywhere. And I think people won't really have their head back on until mid-September, late September. So, I don't know, just.
The rationale for that date was that we usually make it fall on the same day as a regular council
Council
meeting.
meeting, yeah.
But I'll leave it up to council to decide which.
I don't see that in any of our motions.
Well, now we're in
There's no
October.
timeline on it here. The timeline.
With what you're suggesting, now we're in October.
Which I'm fine with. I think that's enough time. I don't know.
Council could, we purposely have not set a date for a public hearing
Oh, okay.
in this resolution. So, there is time for discussion and for Sebastian to think about what would be a better or a different date. Like, it doesn't really, if council wishes to see it at a later date, we don't have to set a date today, is what I'm saying.
And for clarification, it doesn't have to be on the same day as a council meeting. It could be
No, we could have
just convenient.
We could have a special meeting. The only challenge that I see is that, are we sending out a message to the community now, if you want to do development in the summertime, don't bother, show up in September? The uncertainty is what I don't like about this, and I happen to know one of the folks, not very well, that's invested in one of these properties, and I can tell you every day it matters to them. They're a young family that, their investment can't be left hanging out there forever. So we can, this public process that we're used for a long time. And I can't recall a council deciding just because it's summer, we should extend it into the fall. So I think we should follow our normal practice, put it forward as presented with the with the final, with the public hearing and final decision made after that, as we've done with every other rezone that we've dealt with since we were elected here 3 years ago. That's,
Yeah, my apologies. I thought there was a date there for the public hearing, but there's not.
So just to be clear, the next council meeting is September,
For the public hearing,
yeah.
it would be September 7th, not August 17th,
And
which
that-
is
is
the
that-
next regular meeting.
Is that the day after Labor Day? I think
Sorry?
that would be the day after Labor Day?
Yes.
Yeah.
that's our
I
next
would
meeting.
respectfully push back that our process does need more time. We do need to let these things hang out in the community longer than we have been.
Could we get through the first four, and then when we get to the public hearing resolution, have a discussion about the date at that time?
Okay.
Call the question?
Okay. So we have to do them one at a time, by the way, just so you know. So the first one is that the zoning amendment MU 8 zone bylaw 3531 2021 be read a first and second time by title only. All in favor? Thank you. That the official community plan amendment neighborhood commercial designation change bylaw number 3532 2021 be read a second time by title only. Thank you. And that the off-street parking landscape amendment MU 8 zone bylaw number 3533 be read a first and second time by title only. All in favor? Thank you. For each one?
Yes.
Moved and second.
Correct.
Councillor
For
Woodward
two,
and
yep.
Councillor Page.
For two?
And number 2 and number 3, moved by Councillor Renwick, second by Councillor Page. Number 4, mover and
favor?
seconder, that the off-street,
All in, sorry.
Woodward and Councillor Renwick, that the off-street parking and landscape MU 8 zone bylaw number 3533 be read a third time by title only. Carried. Okay, and are we doing number 5 then?
I think we need 4.
That was 4.
That was for.
That was 4.
That was 4.
Then can you please tell me who, I'm sorry, I'm trying to,
Yeah.
who moved and seconded?
Councillor Renwick and Councillor Page.
Okay. And Carrie?
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we're to number 5.
Okay, with regards to number 5, could we approve this at a a meeting like tonight? I guess,
Special meeting?
yeah. Which then gives 2 more weeks?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we could do it any time. We can, it's on a special meeting agenda anyway.
Right.
For the public hearing, to set the date?
For the, yeah, have it for the.
No, that gives Sebastian 2 more weeks to set the public hearing, if we're approving it on the next Cal meeting. That's all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or you can set the date for, it doesn't have to be for for August 17th. It can be, you don't even have to, put a date in here if you don't want to, right?
So I think typically the way this would happen on a rezoning is you would give us direction to move forward. You would give us direction to set a public hearing, and then when we get the direction to set a public hearing, there's certain things that, working backwards, we need to do mail outs, and they need to be a certain time frame between the mail outs, and the newspaper ads need to be not more than so many days, but not less than so many days. So then we typically look at the council calendar and we say, well, the next available council calendar is, meeting date is that date. We make sure that it works that way, and then we set the date. But if you want to specifically tell us, set it for mid-September, then we'll work backwards and we'll figure out a date. It's just, we would just need to know what you're expecting, what your timelines are expecting. I think in the back of our heads, we had the September meeting as an option. It worked out well in terms of meeting all our statutory requirements. But if council wishes to move that further down, we would just need to know, so that it doesn't come September 7th and you said, well, that was not supposed to happen. Not typical, this is not our typical process, but that's okay, I just need direction.
So if I'm understanding, are you saying that the public hearing is would be September 7th? If this was typical in your
Yeah,
court, you would
correct.
which I understand Councillor Page's point, September 7th, people are on holidays. Most people are on holidays up until they arrive that weekend. So nobody's going to get the notices. It's going to be like kids are back, so they're not going to be showing up at a public meeting.
Yeah.
If they even knew about it. So, but we can have the public meeting at the Cow. Any special meeting you can have your public hearing at the, right? We could do it on the same day as the Cow.
So typically, we have a public hearing right before a regular meeting because,
Because then you move to third reading,
well,
adoption,
but
third and adoption.
there, you should not have any new, there cannot be any new information introduced after the public hearing. So to protect the city,
See,
right, we have the public hearing, hear all of the information that, by the deadline, and then council makes their decision immediately following that meeting.
Our last cow is on the 28th of September. There's this regular on the 7th, and then the 28th of September is the cow, is the next one. There's a gap there of more than 2 weeks.
right, it's full.
So
Okay.
in our conversation tonight, council, we got narrowed down to one tiny little thing, right? Around what the uses were. And now we've gone into the timelines. I just
I say stick to the,
stick to
we
the-
can't be all things to all people. And I hear what you're saying, Keith, but I think that we stick to the timelines. That's what we do. Yeah, it's back to school, but you know what? It's back to school. It's a big deal for kids that are going into kindergarten and grade 1. After that, I mean, really, what is back to school? What are we worried about back to school for?
It's just, parents are crazy.
Well, yeah,
It's gonna be the next snowfall,
not all of them, though.
then it's Christmas,
Yeah,
Halloween.
yeah.
I hear you and I agree with you. I'm only thinking about this public notice. Like I can imagine people, I know, we show up Monday, school's Tuesday. We don't know about a meeting. We didn't, and literally I've arrived back and then there's a public meeting about future mine. That's my concern. So I would just want to make sure that we let people know effectively, as quickly as possible, as broadly as possible, and then hope the neighborhood tells us each other, which I think they will, to be honest. Knowing people in that neighborhood, they're going to talk, and we just need to give them as much notice as possible.
It sounds like that neighborhood's engaged already.
Yeah, they're
Right.
pretty engaged.
So, yeah.
Don't put on such a busy day.
Okay, let's make a decision here
Yeah.
on this number 5,
I'm good.
one way or the other, so.
I'll move number 5,
I'll
the way it
second it.
stands.
Okay, moved and second, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Sorry, Sebastian.
So the 28th, write that down.
And something happened.
Now, we
and all
have
of a
the
sudden-
grant application for the 2021 grant application for, staff is seeking to move forward with an application to the BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant to install bike rack shelters at Lakeside Park as well as other individual bike racks in other areas of the city. The grant intake closes on July 30th. Council's resolution endorsing the grant application is required in order to qualify, meet the requirements. Moved by Councillor Woodward and seconded by Councillor Page. The council approved the 2021-2022 BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Grant application. End of trip facility by adding a bike parking in the downtown and installing 2 bike shelters facilities at Lakeside Park. Any questions or comments? Question for Councillor Page.
Okay. Amazing, great, love the bike shelters. Phase 2 of the active transportation bikeway corridor, where are we at? And will we be applying next year? Why is it that this application? Those kinds of questions. I want to know where
Yeah.
Silver King to downtown's coming into play.
Yeah. So we're currently working with our consultants on the other phases of the bike route. We're just not shovel ready.
Okay.
So and now the grant application process is a bit different. They want traffic counts associated with these applications, which was not a requirement before. So knowing that, next time we're going to have to prepare ahead of time. And finally, I only got the email a month ahead of the closing date. So we were trying to find a project that would be quick to come up with a design and a price, and we were able to sneak this in and thank you, council, for sneaking me in at this meeting to get the resolution. But if anybody's been to Lakeside Park this summer, you will notice that we're greatly lacking some bike racks down there.
Yes.
Bikes are just all over the place.
Absolutely.
So I think this will be pretty positive. But yeah, long story short, we're working on the other components. They're going to be challenging, but yeah, we'll work with council as we get a bit further into the detailed planning exercise.
Thanks for that question, and I actually have one, but let's deal with this one, right? So could I ask for, all in favor? Carried, okay. Good question, Councillor Page. And actually today I went for a coffee at John Ward's, and you know what, guys? I love the new bike racks, but they're not functional. There's bikes bolted to frickin' parking meters all over the place, sitting on the sidewalk.
The
up
new
against
ones?
buildings like- Pardon?
The brand new one, the ones that
Yeah,
just went in
it's
the
like
last
you-
2 days.
One bike up against it, or two at max. Like, I don't know if we need to come up with a different, maybe people that cycle just get off their bike wherever and tie it to something and walk away. But
Maybe we just bolt
it's like
something.
a junkyard there sometimes when you want to try and navigate some of the intersections with bikes tied to poles and posts and
Yeah.
lamp posts. and-
I've taken a few photos of them working really well. They are made for 2 bikes maximum.
I should have took a photo today. I wish I had.
Yeah, there's some areas that are more congested. I don't think it's
Criticizing the
because of the
cyclist
bike
here.
racks.
I'm just saying, like, if we're
Yeah.
gonna get into this whole
Yeah.
active transportation thing, everybody needs to be part of the solution. So, I don't think it's acceptable to be going to get your glasses fixed and you just tie your bike to the door of the freaking company you're going in to visit, right?
I think we don't have enough, and we're gonna work on putting some more, and I think,
Do we need a different type though? Like, it almost seems to me like you need a parking stall, and I know there'll be shots fired over this one. You need a parking stall where you could put 15 bikes in it.
I'd be happy to bring that forward.
Yes.
I'd be
do
happy
it.
to approve it.
Like,
But
I'd be happy you bring it forward. too.
I think there's some plans to do things like that. But it doesn't necessarily solve the problem of, that's a very specific location.
Yeah.
And I think, corner of Ward and it would make
both
sense.
corners, actually.
Yeah, because it is busy, there's a lot happening there, and that's a popular destination. But right now, we're trying to spread them out.
Yeah.
And we've got some more coming, and hopefully right now, we're just installing 3 to 4 per block, and it's not enough.
No,
Yeah.
it's definitely not. And the other thing about them too, and I think there's a lot of thought and good work have gone into them, but they don't look like a bike rack. They look like a piece of art that you think, should I tie my bike to
Yeah,
this or
yeah.
not? Like,
We try,
you know what I
we
mean?
even put a bike on it, so we thought it'd be
Yeah, there's a
pretty
bike on
clear.
there, I
Yeah.
got it, right?
We'll just write, this is a bike rack on the
Just
next one.
saying.
Neon sign.
Sebastian, does it make sense to put hooks or something to secure a bike properly to the parking meters themselves? Like, the only thing that stops me from wanting to use a parking meter is, well, you're just gonna lift my bike up over and you're gone, but like some belled hooks on either side that I could thread my lock through, and then, cause like you're adding these things to the streetscape. We've got places to anchor, we just need something to securely anchor to, and I just don't know if it's like a faux pas to get in the way of the parking meter anyway, just a bad design element.
That's sometimes what happens if there's too many bikes, then people are trying to get on top of the bikes to feed the meters. The other thing is that the meters are really close to the curb.
Yeah.
So then you're only putting one bike, but it wouldn't necessarily hurt. Like, it's, like, people can typically get around it. It's just best practice is kind of what we've designed. We just try to create a bit more of a local touch to them. But that's kind of the reverse U. They accept all sorts of bikes, and that's kind of the model that they recommend using. But it's not impossible to add things on existing infrastructure for sure.
Sebastian, when that, without dragging this out forever, but I'm gonna try, because when we moved that bus depot, we would have ample space on that Ward Street side there for proper, maybe 40 bike racks, you know what I mean, that would take.
And that is part of the plan too. There was a curb extension happening.
Yeah.
and they were recommending putting 10 plus more bike racks on the north, or I guess the southeast corner. So yeah, that definitely we'll keep our eyes peeled. I'm just looking for the right opportunity to create that parking
hub,
space.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say, like, last time I was in Vancouver, they've just taken up a couple of parking spots, you know, and there's 20 bikes. All parked there, and it's very efficient.
If there's bikes parked all over the place down there and whatever, is that on a bylaw issue? I mean, if it was cars, we'd be ticketing them, right?
Yeah, you would, but at the same time, we're trying to encourage people to, and I think we need to
try to encourage, but you know what?
Yeah, but we need to have
Somebody needs
this
to be the bad
conversation.
guy every now and again.
Hey?
Jesus.
Why, Cal?
Why?
Why?
I get what
But why aren't we making a spot available then?
Taking advantage
Of what? There's nowhere to put your bike.
of strapping bikes to things that they're not supposed to be strapped to.
Well, that's why we built.
Says.
Have we communicated that?
Great.
Okay, Sebastian's on it, right? Sebastian's
Yeah,
on it. Okay.
I'm on it. I think we just need more bike racks. Then we'll have
Cal
safe-
wants a parking
We need
spot
to give
for
them
bikes.
space.
Yeah.
Right.
Less bicycles.
No, like if that really bothers you, I'm like 100% like.
Well, I know what the
Where's
mayor's
the
saying.
two parking spots?
I know what he's
are they?
saying.
Where are we putting the fence up?
In the meantime, with this grant, hopefully we'll get more bike racks
There you go.
downtown and less issues.
Okay, so guys, folks, we gotta move
Yep.
forward here, so.
Thank
You
you.
got what you wanted so far, Sebastian, you got
Yeah.
the difference on
Get a
here.
good night here,
And
Sebastian.
I'd like a motion to, close the meeting to the public, please. Moved by Councillor Renwick, second by Councillor Page, all in favor? Thank you, close the
Thank
door
you.
behind you and don't let it hit you on the back.